Hello, and we're back. Yes, thank you for joining this week's conversation. How are you? You well? I'm extremely well. London's been quite nice, plus there's been some work stuff starting up, which is always very exciting. But I've got to keep my excitement tempered somewhat, just in case things fuck up, you know what I mean? But this week's guest is someone that my excitement is over bubbling to speak to. Does that even make sense? Is that a sentence? Yeah, well, this week's guest is making me very excited. Someone that I'm really happy to be speaking to. They're a poet, a psychologist, a performer, and a speaker, just a general all-round fucking badass. Sanah Ahsan is joining me, and here they are. Wait, here we go. Hang on, how do I add them? This whole thing's changed. This whole app has just changed. Ha! Easy, Jotler. How are you, bro? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Let's see if this works. If Sanah will accept my friendship. Hello!
Am I in it? Hey, hello.
How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You sound a little quiet, but that might be my volume.
You know what? Let me try it without the headphones. Is that better?
It is better, actually.
Okay, great. Hello, how are you?
I'm very, very happy.
Yeah?
Because I get to see you and talk to you and also have a drink. This is fucking great.
You're so sweet. It's so nice to see you. It's been so long.
It has. And the thing is that the last time in fact, I bumped into you on Brick Lane, I think, randomly.
Yeah, I know. What was happening? I can't remember what I was doing then, but yeah.
I think it was record store day or something, because it was like during lockdown, I think, as well. Yeah, it was during lockdown, because he went to hug and it was like, oh, he can't hug, so here's an elbow. Get that down, yeah. Some loving elbow touchings, yeah.
Yeah, how are you? How have you been?
Not bad. I was just rambling before you joined about how things are kind of picking up work-wise. So I've got this thing happening in about 3 weeks' time.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool. I don't know. Can I talk about it? Yeah, fuck it. I'll talk about it.
Yeah, talk about it.
So Anushka Shankar is doing a free weekend outdoor festival at South Bank on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and I'm programming the 3rd evening. So it's going to be, there's lots and lots of hidden acts that I can't talk about, but it's going to be fucking epic.
Yeah, damn, that sounds amazing. That sounds sick.
I'm sure I've told you about this, haven't I?
Yeah. Actually, I think you did mention it. Yeah, you did mention it. It sounds sick. I really hope I can come through.
Please do.
Hope I can come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone's sort of champing at the bit to get the fuck out and do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, I mean, but you've been incredibly productive over this last year since I last saw you, right? You've been.
Have I?
I mean, Dr. Saab, flipping like Author Saab. I mean, come on, you've just smashed it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's weird. It feels like a lifetime ago actually getting the qualification. Now,
right.
It's just been such a slow, weird year, hasn't it? Slow and fast all at the same time. But yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm qualified now, which is crazy because I feel like I was working towards it for so long, like my whole life, basically, even though it wasn't. But it was definitely a real stretch trying to get that qualification. So it's just a relief to be on the other side.
Do you feel a sort of sense of acceptance from people that may not have accepted you now you've got those 2 letters in front of your name?
It's a lie.
Is it really? No one calls you doctor or any shit like that. There's no recognition for those 2 magical letters.
No, there is. There definitely is. But I think no, I think I'd be lying to say that it hasn't helped me. It's really hard to kind of really discern exactly how. You know, I think I get much more opportunities to speak, and I think maybe what I say comes with a bit more weight with that qualification. But I don't know if I'm as attuned to it. Maybe I'm just not as aware. You know, because I still feel the same. You know, but yeah, I guess I'm definitely being invited to do much more academic speaking and thinking, just because I've done my research now. And that's been published, and I think especially in like the area of whiteness and clinical psychology, you know, maybe it's the doctor title that's getting me through those doors. God knows.
I mean, that's the thing. You're tackling quite a serious subject, and with that doctor, people are going to be like, "Who's this moaning bastard?" Whereas now they have to listen to the moaning bastard and go, "Okay, shit, we have to actually pay attention to this."
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've I've kind of taken a little bit of a step back since qualification from the very intense side of the work, the very like clinical, therapeutic, one-to-one stuff. Because I was working in homelessness for like a year just before I qualified, and I've taken more of a step back to do psychological work and therapeutic work from more of a teaching side of things, and like group therapy, and you know, working to do more liberatory spaces in organizations that are, you know, like Beyond Equality, for example, where I'm working with facilitators of color to really come through a period of a lot of challenge in managing like whiteness within their organization. You know,
that's got to be really like difficult for people to confront things that they may not be aware of.
Right. Do you mean in therapy, or just
no, in organizational? Like if you're holding up a mirror to people, they're like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're fine. What are you moaning about?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I think it's really different work when you're working with the people that maybe have the power and the decision making, you know, and contrastingly with facilitators who are kind of being pulled into organizational decisions and just trying to make their way through it. You know what I mean?
So you don't see that, you don't get much resistance then from people that do have the power?
Oh no, for sure.
Okay, that's what I mean. That's kind of what. Yeah.
I'm just thinking particularly about. No, I was saying, no, I think particularly in that setting where I'm working with facilitators of color,
right?
You know, who are really coming through systems of oppression and trying to work in a way where they are liberated and finding their own voice in an organization, which can be quite oppressive, is really different to then the work that I'm doing kind of alongside with the people in power who are making the decisions that kind of have those top down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So it's really different work, and I think like the work that I enjoy the most is working with people who, basically working with marginalized people, you know, actually doing the work of liberation rather than, you know, white people. people in power. You know, I think it's harder, it's more exhausting, and I think it's still important work, but I think it feels a bit more challenging, you know.
So how, I mean, going like sort of, this is all like we've kind of gone down this whole conversational path about what you're doing now.
Can you still hear me?
Have I frozen on you? Yeah, I can hear you. Hang on. Hear and see you. Can you hear and see me? Hello?
I can, but it's just like the connection's gone a bit shit. Let's see how we go. Can you hear me now? Can you see me?
I can totally hear you. Yeah, there were moments when now you've frozen. Now you've spun out. Are you on like 4G or Wi-Fi or something?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hold on a second.
If you're watching this, by the way, who's looking worse? Is it me or Sanah? If you're observing this chat, who's got the fucked up connection? We need some assistance if you're watching us. Because now Sanah's audio is gone for me. Huh. I'm seeing hearts and things. Oh no, she's gone. Oh no. So I guess it was her connection, not mine. Huh. Well, hello. Thanks for joining. Hi, Crank is me. How's it going? Hi, Priti. How are you? Lovely to see you. Hey, Osmani Sounds, big up. Now I'm going to, I'm beautiful. Oh, that's really sweet of you. Thank you. That's from Maulik Sharma. You're beautiful too. Sanah's back. Here we go. Sanah, here we go. Send request. Let's see if this reconnects. Hi.
Hello.
Vishal in the comments is saying you're clear, Nerm, so I'm guessing it's at your end. But I can see you perfectly now and hear you perfectly now.
Oh, okay. Let's see how we go. I'm trying to use Wi-Fi, and if not, I'll try and use my 4G. Let's see how we go.
Is someone in your abode trying to download loads of illicit stuff?
Issue, so. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're not, because it's just my dad who's next door. So.
Do you want to switch it over to your data? Because I think Level Up UK is saying, do you want to switch over to your data? Something's going on at your end. Someone's trying to hack the moon or something. I'm telling you. Hi, Mogara. Good to see you. Hi, Vishal. Yeah, that Vishal Dadlani session was cool. That was a while ago. I see what you did there. Vishal Dadlani. Very funny. Yeah, that was a couple of weeks back. Hi, Raj. I'm not joining musicians today. I'm speaking to an amazing person called Sanah Ahsan, who's a poet and a psychologist who's recently got their doctorate. They're amazing. Go check them out. But currently, Sanah's buffering rather than talking to me. That's what their main qualification is pretty much just buffering. Excellent. Hi, sweetie. How are you? In fact, that's an interesting story while waiting for Sanah to get onto data. I first saw Sanah at Sweetie Kapoor's night. And it was amazing. I walked in to this sort of boxing gym with this ring in the middle. And there was this microphone with a single spotlight, and Sanah stepped into that spotlight and read. And, you know, I'm someone that's not really that much of a fan of spoken word, I've got to be honest with you. And I'm really harshly critical as well. I'm a complete bastard, truth be told. But Sanah spoke, and I was just fucking mesmerized, like completely mesmerized. So let me see if she can mesmerize you too. Hey, Nichols Pickles, how you going? Big up Nick from Bombay. Hi.
Yay! Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I can see you now. Are you on the data?
I am on the data. I'm so sorry, Nerm.
I mean, you've pixelated a little bit, but it's fine.
Is it a bit buffery?
It's cool. It's cool. We can still communicate. It's all good.
All right, cool.
So going back to your whole story, like from when I first encountered you, because Sweetie's in the chat, she popped up, so I said, "Hi, Sweetie."
Amazing. Hi, Sweetie. I love.
And it was yeah, she's amazing, like fucking legend at events, you know, like proper. She's just gangster. Yeah, it was just recounting the first time I saw you, which was at her night, where you were in a boxing rink. I keep saying rink instead of ring, like it's a fucking ice skating rink. Could you imagine ice boxing? That'd be awesome. But no, a boxing ring with you in the middle on a mic. And I was just saying, I'm quite harshly critical of spoken word because I've got a lot of friends that are writers, but very few can actually read their work without sounding a bit naff, including the massively established ones. But you were able to read it out or sort of speak in a way that was just so fucking like spellbinding. Just like it was like a magnet. In fact, it was like Star Wars, you know, when the Millennium Falcon's getting tractor beamed in. It was like that.
I'm going to embarrass myself and tell you that I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars fan, so that reference is slightly wasted on me, but I'm still going to thank you for being so sweet.
Well, tractor beam vibes. You know, I was just like, what is this? So yeah. So that's it. So going, you know, before I knew you as a psychologist, it was as a poet.
Yeah, which is what yeah, I mean, thank you so much. That event was really special and really beautiful. And I think Sweetie definitely has a knack for creating very magical spaces that invites people to really come as themselves, you know. And it was just sick to perform in a boxing ring. You know what I mean? You just draw on the fighter energy.
Proper.
Yeah, no, I loved that. It was really beautiful. And I think I was actually really nervous that night because the lineup was pretty epic. And I was definitely carrying a lot of just fear and unbelonging, but I think that's something that I carry in a lot of spaces actually, and all the time. You know, I think we as women of color, as people of color, I think we're taught to internalize a lot of shame, and I think it can be really difficult to ever feel a real sense of confidence and self-assurance, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's psychology or poetry. But yeah, I'm trying to definitely find my own and just I love it anyway. You know what I mean? I kind of try and step into the feelings of stickiness because there's so much.
I like that, feelings of stickiness. That sounds almost X-rated, but it's also kind of weird. I like it. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I love performing, and I do miss it a lot actually. I haven't performed in quite a long time, and I've taken a step back because I think before I would definitely have called myself more of a spoken word performer, and I never really thought about my poems on the page as much in terms of creating a collection of work that is to be read. You know, I was always writing with performance in mind, and over the last year or so I've been just really, really blessed to get Arts Council funding to work on my first book, and I've been working with Mary Jean Chan and Rachel Long. I don't know if you know who they are, but
No, but I will make notes and follow up and research.
They are like big, Mary Jean Chan and Rachel Long. They're incredible, incredible poets, and especially, I mean, for me, they've both been like really, really influential in shaping my poetry journey. And Mary Jean Chan's collection, Flesh, if you guys don't know it, get it. It's incredible. Really explores themes of mothering and queerness. And, you know, she's born in Hong Kong, and she writes a lot about feelings of unbelonging, actually, you know, and a lot of it is centered around her relationship with her mum. And I remember picking up that collection at a time where I was just navigating so much grief and disconnection from my family, and just struggling with, you know, grief, queerness, and making sense of myself, and trying to just like make it through another day. And that book just offered so much containment and holding. So basically what I'm trying to say is, it is sick that she is mentoring me.
But also, I guess you're creating for the page now, as opposed to for an audience, right?
Yeah, but I'm also,
is that a bit of a head fuck, or is that natural?
I don't, natural. It's coming. I'm definitely enjoying it now. I think initially it was a bit of a head fuck, for sure, and I think there's a little bit sometimes a sense of like elitism in the poetry world, where you can read. I don't know if you felt this, but sometimes you can pick up poems and you're like, they feel very impenetrable. It's like, what is this even about? You know, and those are often like the prize-winning collections a lot of the time, you know, and I really struggled with that degree of metaphor when it's so inaccessible, you know, and sometimes I feel like that is another form of whiteness in its own way, you know, just like impenetrable, inaccessible ways of communicating. And yeah, so initially I found it quite off-putting, but I definitely found like trying to pave my own way onto the page, and like working with Mary Jean and Rachel Long has just really opened my creative energy up big time. You know, I've just been writing and creating so much new work. But it's weird because, you know, back in the day when you're performing, you write a poem and you're like, right, I'm ready to hit the stage and perform, you know, and then you can't wait for the buzz from the audience. Whereas now I'm just sort of sitting on work, and it's just basically Mary Jean and Rachel and, you know, my loved ones that get to hear it. You know, so
and you're just waiting
I'm
for that instant sort of feedback.
To get to a point where when the collection is coming out, which I think hopefully will be soon. Yeah. Well,
nice.
I mean, what's your take on page poetry? Are you a fan of page poetry?
I honestly, I was going to say, actually, one of there's two things that came to mind. Number one was Prince, obviously, because big up Prince, and some of his lyrics being basically like poetry and stories. Of course, I fucking love Prince; it's amazing. But that's it. So like the impenetrable poetry aspect of it, and sort of metaphors, when they're woven into song, I can work with it better. Do you know what I mean? I need other stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, that's what they're talking about. Oh shit. Then, you know, whatever. And the other thing is sort of something that's been in my head for a long time when you talk about the impenetrableness of two tomes of poetry, or sort of, you know, big volumes. The fascinating thing for me is that recently, particularly with you know, the way the world's going, it's about tabloidizing or sort of sloganizing certain feelings and emotions. So making anything simpler obviously has a bigger audience, right? So the simpler the metaphor and the more sort of stripped down the words, the more direct you can appeal to people. And the right are really fucking good at doing that. Whereas the more progressives seem to be really verbose and flowery and all, you know, and it's just like there's a lot of like thought that's gone into it, but there's not enough simplicity. And you're fucking amazing at doing that, which is why I'm so astounded by your work, because you get to the fucking point and there's a metaphor and it just fucking punches you in the gut. You're like, oh fuck, this is just too fucking like good and focused, and yeah, it's awesome. So I think maybe that's the performance aspect about you that I appreciate. You know, reading poetry, particularly my friends' poetry, it's great because I know the individuals and know what they're writing about. But I think that when it comes to people I don't know, maybe I'm not as much of a fan.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for saying that, Nerm. I think that dance, like treading that line between that kind of overly complex and accessible metaphor and actually doing it in a way that's simple enough to be accessible, you know, is it is definitely an art, and I do think performance helps with that, because when you're performing, I think it's harder for that complexity to land. You know,
Yeah.
when you're
And you can see the faces, right? If they're just like, huh? You're like, oh, fuck, I've got to go back a bit.
yeah, exactly. You know, but when you've got a collection with you in front of you, and there's time to sit with it on the page and reread it, and to let it kind of just digest and think about the different possibilities. I still think there's a lot of beauty in that, but it's a different means of connecting, you know. And so it's just a really different art form, I think, for sure.
Are you nervous about putting your work out not on the stage first?
Yeah, I mean, I am. Yeah, I think I haven't, yeah, I definitely am nervous, actually. But I think I'm also excited. I'm quite gassed, actually, because I feel quite excited about my work at the moment. I feel like it's taking on a really different form, and I think working or some of the stuff that I think I found hard to write into before, you know. And I think I've had a lot of fearfulness around, especially I think writing into issues around family, my past, like queerness and Islam. You know, I think I've been quite fearful, and with their support and their guidance, I've been able to do that with more depth. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm scared, but I'm excited.
Oh, that actually goes to I Sing S in the comments says, Sanah, how difficult was it for you to come out? I can imagine being Asian, it wasn't that easy. And you've just mentioned that's got to be, you know, that's something you're confronting in your work. Is that something you're happy talking about now?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I mean, I think the coming out process is an interesting one. You know, even the language of it always baffles me a bit because yeah, it wasn't for me a single incident. I definitely did the dance of trying to please people around me for a long time, and there was a coming out, I guess, to myself, which was a lifelong process, and I think in some ways I'm still even navigating. And then there was the series of I guess incidents on and off with family throughout my adolescence, where I tried to like kind of come out, like sort of tiptoe out a little bit, and then realize that just wasn't gonna be accepted. You know, met a lot of, you know, I guess punitive responses. It was really painful. I think it is really painful for parents that are raised, you know, in Pakistan, who genuinely believe that I'm gonna go to hell, you know, and that's their genuine belief system for making those life choices, you know. And I think there's a lot of grief for them. So that you know, I was meeting their pain, meeting my pain, and went back in, I guess, if you want to use that language.
Like a really painful game of chess.
I mean, yeah, in some ways, I feel like a big part of me, like, loving myself and coming to a place of acceptance with myself was actually meeting people who saw me in my wholeness, you know, and having you know, whole mirrors that reflect me back in my wholeness to me. Whereas I think I spent a long time having cracked mirrors held up where I believed I was broken for a long time, you know, by being around my family. And it was actually, I think, coming out through poetry, I guess, like writing about it and then performing about it, which led to more and more opportunities to speak and be, you know, on the media, in news. And when that happened, there was no going back. Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
whole wider family in Slough, in like Pakistan, you know, it traveled. And so there was really painful repercussions when that happened, because it just yeah, you know, I think my family couldn't hold that. You know, I had to, you know, there was like really a lot of severance from connection with the family, and I was left like on my own, and yeah, felt really isolated. But I'm also very grateful to have had a lot of chosen family around that held me through that, you know. And it's been an ongoing, you know, I think sometimes it can sound a bit hopeless, but actually that cutting off and that severance from family actually allowed a little bit of space and time for us to come back into each other's lives in a different way after after some significant time apart, you know. And I've got a really beautiful relationship with my dad now, who you know, tries his best to see me. And as a, you know, as a Pakistani man who spent most of his life in Karachi, he was born in Bangladesh, you know, and like it's hard for him, and he's really like doing his best to see me and love me, you know, and he does. But it's taken time to get there, you know.
That's awesome. That's nice that there's a positive spin on that. But you talk
Yeah,
about
for sure.
you talk about being broken, and that's quite fascinating to me, because I think there was a thing for years where, and I still think of this in a lot of ways, about compartmentalization and different facets of myself that aren't necessarily part of a whole that even I comprehend. You know, like the theory that everyone you meet will meet a different version of you because you're creating a whole other person for a whole other personality for that person. So they come away with a different idea of who you are. So it's quite interesting, because I've never really thought of the idea of wholeness, because it's kind of quite alien to me.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think I guess to some extent we are always a fragmented version of ourselves. I think the idea of complete and utter wholeness is a bit of an imagining, and I think I do think there are places where we can be closer to wholeness, you know, when we're met with real love, you know, and people are really present with us and really actually trying to see us and really trying to listen, because it carves out space for us to show up as more and more ourselves, you know. But I think there is a reality that, and I also think that the culture that we live in at the moment actually invites us to practice more fragmented versions of ourselves, because we have a very, you know, a social media orientated culture which promotes individualism, promotes, you know, this capitalist way of being, which is like, you need to be a certain version of you to be accepted in this world, and we kind of out the shinier fragmented parts, you know. And I think with that, what we end up doing is practicing being fragmented versions of ourselves. You know, it's very hard to show up in our fullness and our wholeness on platforms like social media, and especially through COVID, when that's the only means of connecting. I think it's very difficult. You know?
Oh, mate, I mean, that's the thing. Actually, weirdly, these have been the most realist chats I've had with my mates through the last 63 fucking weeks, because I'm just like, you know, it's been kind of an interesting grounding. And I think, honestly, for me, that fragmentation's been more of like, how much of the fuck you can I show? It's all been very true to myself. Do you know what I mean? It's been very, very aggressively true. But still, there's certain elements that have been, you know, revealed very carefully. So yeah, no, thanks for that. It's interesting. Your way with words and the way you describe things must flow from your poetry straight into your professional work as well.
Yeah, I mean, not consciously, but I think it probably does help. I think the practice of articulation. I just wanted to say though, just quickly, because I had a thought about what you were just saying about the fragmented self, and I think it, you know, what your relationship with yourself is fundamentally will also translate. So if you can only allow the broken parts of, you know, I think if you're very self-critical, for example, you know, and there's always this kind of shutting down, and when there's a lot of shame that we might be carrying, especially as people of color, I think then it's harder to open up to other people in a whole way and be a whole mirror for someone else. Does that make sense? And I think that relation
100%. I think there's also fear thrown into that too.
It's our relationship with ourselves fundamentally, how compassionate we can meet, how much compassion we can meet ourselves with, that we end up extending to others and end up being that whole mirror for others. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I was just going to say, I don't know whether you heard, but I think fear is also a part of it too, not just shame. Particularly, you know, from certain South Asian backgrounds, there's an awful lot of actually maybe they're intertwined, because the fear of what will other people think. It's like, fuck other people. You know, it's that whole idea of what the greater community will think and the fear attached to it. So I think you're correct. There's probably a massive Venn diagram that overlaps there. There's a big middle bit of fame, fear and shame. Feign. There you go. New word.
Yeah, for sure. And this is it as well, you know, I think when it comes, when you bring in the conversation of culture into it as well, and like expectations, family expectations, you know, and this constant fearfulness and needing to please, you know, you're always, I think, coming from this place of deficiency to some extent, this lack, this idea that you're not enough to please others. And I think when you've learned that from culture, if you've learned that from the family home and the immediate sort of nuclear family environment, it really translates, you know. It's really hard to shed that then when you're with other people, whether it's fearfulness, you know, a fear of disappointment, you know, or disappointing others, or whether it's tied up with shame, which is this core sense of I am not enough, you know, which I do think often can underpin fear. But yeah, I don't know if you can hear me because you've frozen, and I'm getting the turning circle.
Speaking of which, you're buffering again. There's a circle right on your face doing this. Hello. Hi. Oh, Sanah's buffering again. Hey, you're back. Hi.
Oh, no. Am I back? Okay, great.
You're back. This connection's like patchy. Are you sure you're not in Karachi, actually? Because this connection's just as, like, this feels like I'm speaking to someone on the subcontinent. Like, Rago. Like...
I know. I'm so sorry, Nerm. You know, it's not even usually like this. I don't know why it's so bad.
Do you want to try something? Do you want to try turning your phone off and on again?
Yeah, all right, cool. Shall I do that?
And I'll still be here. Yeah, let's try it. Because I'd rather speak to you properly without delays, because I'm just like pausing and then like hearing shit, and then there's like Lego faces happening and stuff. So yeah, let's try restarting.
All right. I'll try come out and come back in.
We can get in the zone. Yeah. So Sanah will rejoin in a bit. Hi Akash, how are you? Nathan, Flipbox Lead, big love, bruv. Thank you for joining us. Yes, Warped Spaces in the chat. Lovely seeing you, Priti. And look, thank you for bearing with us through all this technical difficulties. My speech is all over the fucking place today, and I haven't really drunk much yet either. But yeah, how awesome is Sanah? She's great. So eloquent, it's ridiculous. The ability to break things down simply is just incredible. And we'll go into her work stuff next, because I was taken aback when we sort of hung out at this bar while she was watching me drink one night, and she was talking about her work stuff too. I was just astounded by that. By the way, if you've got any questions for Sanah, there's a little question mark button at the bottom. Just maybe it's on that side of the screen. I don't know how it looks, but somewhere at the bottom, hit that and write in your question, and I'll put it to her. You know. And how are you? Are you well? You good this evening? I'm thoroughly enjoying my chat with Sanah. I just wish the technical aspects would sort themselves out so we can really get into the zone again. Yeah, actually, while we're here, July 3rd in London, like I mentioned before, an open air festival that Anushka Shankar is putting together. In fact, the 2nd, 3rd and 4th of July at South Bank outdoors. And I am helping her out on the Saturday night, and it's going to be pretty fucking epic. There's lots of guests, which I can't talk about. Lots of new collaborations, which have never been seen before. Some touchwood international presence. Yeah, it's going to be pretty badass. So come join us if you can. It's completely free. So yeah, and there is some poetry vibes happening that day too, as well as a collaboration between an amazing producer and an esteemed poet. So if you like poetry, like Sanah's work, then yeah, please come. Hey, Sanah's back. Let's have a look-see. Hi, Dewey. How are you? Lovely to see you. Thank you, Priti. I'm trying to contain my excitement just in case things fuck up. You know, COVID regulations and all of that. Hello.
Hello. God.
Did you do the whole IT thing of turning it off and on again? Excellent.
The world doesn't want it to happen, though. What is this?
Doesn't want what to happen? What are you giving my event bad juju?
No, are you?
What are you doing, man? You cursing me? What?
No, I'm just really trying out here. It's not happening.
It looks good. I can see you. I can see you clearly now, clearly.
That's good. I'm back on my Wi-Fi. I turned off my phone, turned it back on. So Inshallah, let's see.
This looks good. This looks good. Well, that's the other thing. I think, we're talking about intersectionality, right? Like you're at like 3 of them, or maybe 4, which is like a hell of a fucking place to be.
Yeah. Four of them. What are you referring to?
Like intersectional points of fuckery, of
Yeah.
things to deal with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, really. Yes,
I mean,
that's
that's your work, isn't it? That's your book. That's your new book that's coming out soon. Is it a book? What is it actually?
yeah. So it's my first poetry collection.
Mm.
But yes, I'm definitely exploring themes of intersectionality without a doubt.
Mm.
You know, I'm exploring sexuality, gender, whiteness, trauma. You know, all of the things, and I think also I'm very much. I mean, it's less of an academic take on it, but inevitably, I think I'm drawing on my psychological background to do some of that sense making through the poems of my own life. You know, and I bring in through some of the poetry kind of exploration of psychological themes poetically.
What came
If
first,
that makes any
poetry or
sense to
psych?
anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. What came first, poetry or psychology? Hello?
Oof.
Oh, it's still
Um,
glitching.
I
This
say
connection.
poetry, consciously poetry, just because I I think my entry into poetry was music for sure. You know, I just didn't have the language for it as poetry. Um, so I listen to. Can you still hear me? Because I've got the circles come back up.
I can hear you, but I can't. The circle thing's going. So carry on. We'll just carry on. Hello?
Have I got you now? Hello?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you were saying poetry came first. This is just like those long distance
Oh,
phone calls from fucking the 90s. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Like fucking full auntie chat. This is wicked. This is wicked. This is like authentic brown people business.
surely this must have happened to you before, no? While you're doing this, or is this the first time it
Loads
happened?
of times, loads of times. Like I keep making this joke that brown people are meant to be really fucking good at IT, but we're shit because everyone's got a bad connection.
Yeah. I mean, I was saying like poetry came first, basically, and I listened to a lot of hip hop growing up, and my brother used to play a lot of hip hop in the house, so I think like rap influenced me big time. Um, the first poetry collection that I actually picked up was The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac. Do you know that book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was actually the first poetry book I picked up. But it was, yeah, I think like I used to write like basically like little raps, and you know, but didn't have the language for it as poetry then. And I think progressively I just wrote poems in my room. You know, I didn't even know there was a spoken word scene. I had no idea that there was a possibility of having a poetry career. You know, and then I was quite late actually. It was in my 20s that I was like 25 when I even realized that there were spoken word artists. You know, because the internet has changed drastically. And yeah, and I think like it's much more accessible, and I think easier to enter the field of poetry, you know. But yeah, I filmed a little selfie video of me doing a poem, and I saw this Words First. I don't know if you've heard of Words First, but it's a scheme for BBC for like upcoming poets. And I just filmed a little video and put it in by chance, and I got in, and it was just like so overwhelming, like beautiful, basically, to see that there were so many incredible poets just doing this as a career, and it made me realize that this was possible. And then I started actually pursuing it as a side hustle, basically. But I guess the psychology, you know, it's always been there, because I think for me, I was a part of the psychology world as a young person, as in I was in therapy and I was in CAMS from quite a young age. So I knew of the world and I knew of the profession from the other side, you know. So it was kind of, that seed was planted in quite early for me that I wanted to be a therapist, but it was quite a limited understanding until you actually, you know, actually pursue the career, you know, and understand how challenging the work is.
So to clarify, what's the difference between psychology and psychiatry?
Okay, so psychiatry is a very medicalized framework of being with distress. So psychiatrists tend to write prescriptions and medications to quote unquote treat suffering. You know, their whole understanding of suffering is very much based on a diagnostic system of categories like depression, bipolar disorder, this very medicalized language that's used to see and recognize suffering as a illness that is placed within often your biochemistry within your mind, that is treated with pills, right?
So it's to correct a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Right, but actually, so I mean that's the idea that it sits on, right? That there is a chemical imbalance in the brain. But actually, a lot of people don't know and haven't been made aware of actually how problematic psychiatry is, because the whole chemical imbalance theory has very, very, very little evidence. And most evidence actually points to our distress being in context of and being caused by our social political context, what we're going through, structural trauma, our relationships. You know, it's actually much more about what's happening around us than there being something wrong with us or in our brains, right? And for me, the position that I sit, especially as a psychologist, it's like, can we actually medicate injustice? You know, can we really take pills to cure, you know, social ills and social suffering and structural trauma? I think the whole premise of psychiatry is problematic because it feeds this idea that we have something wrong with us individually, and it obscures us from what is happening in our worlds, you know. And then the whole thing becomes about individual treatment rather than, you know, structural interventions like activism, all of those things, you know. Does that make sense? Have I explained that
100%? Yeah, of course. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And when you say therapy, therefore, you're discussing a psychological approach as opposed to a psychiatric medical approach.
Right. So, I mean, this is the thing, that even psychologists can be complicit in this sort of harmful individualizing of distress, right? Because there are many therapeutic approaches, like, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, that places the problem within individual cognition, right? The idea that there's something wrong with your individual thinking pattern or your thinking style, and actually it's your responsibility to learn different coping mechanisms, right? But there are also psychologists who take a more liberation focused approach and systemic approach, which really think with the person, that they sit with the person in context of understanding their distress, like, you know, in terms of structural injustice, in terms of experiences of homophobia, in terms of experiences of Islamophobia. You know, of course you're experiencing distress. You've gone through all of this, and we can see this. We can place this within intergenerational trauma. We can place this within an ancestral trauma. You know, and not all psychologists do that. You know, not all psychologists do that, and we also have a real problem within psychology where it is an 88% white profession, where a lot of white psychologists are being quite complicit in harm and obscuring, you know, what we're going through and what's happening around us, and obscuring, you know, experiences of racism, and reaffirming this idea that there's something wrong with us individually, you know.
And once, I mean, that's the thing, is I guess once you shift focus to the sort of societal structure that causes these, you know, these feelings of pain. Yeah? Can you hear me? Hello, hello? Hi. Can you hear me? I heard everything you said, but can you hear what I'm saying? Oh no, we're getting really, really interesting. And it buffered again. Pooh. Sanah, hello? Hi, can you hear me?
Oh no, it's buff. Can you hear me? Am I back?
I can hear you. I could
What
hear
was
you
the
all along.
Okay, yay, good. I wasn't sure whether it cut off completely.
No, no, I
Did
asked
you
you a
got
question after that,
what was the question? What was the
which
question? I didn't
was,
catch the question.
okay, so once you've sort of shifted the blame away from the individual sort of problem in, or the perceived problem in someone's head to societal problems and societal structure, how do you then pivot to
Right.
actually healing that person? Because if it's society's problem, then how does that person get better if the world's fucked? Oh man, it
Right.
buffered again.
Right. Well, this is the question. Well, I think this is the whole thing. Um,
Okay.
I'm actually. Can you hear me? Sorry. Am I?
Hmm. Yeah, I totally hear you. Yeah,
Hello.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So this idea of getting better. Okay. This idea of wellness. I think is also tied up in whiteness. Let me say a bit more about that. Right. I think we have a society that is very focused on fixing and placing, kind of pedestaling this myth of wellness. What is wellness? I mean, and also what is a healed place? I think that we're often, I think the language of healing is used quite regularly. I'm more interested in the therapeutic space as being one that cultivates softness for us to be with the messiness of life. Because you're right, the world is shit. The condition of humanity, the condition of existence is one of pain. So I think part of what is therapy is being able to be with our messiness, to be with our suffering that is inevitable, with softness, with compassion. And in that softness and in that acceptance, I think is an opening then to more freedom, to actually meet joy, to actually live a more full life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So I'm reluctant of this idea of fixing and getting, and we need to get better. It's like, no, we need to be with ourselves more and be okay with where we are. I think
Mm.
that's it. It's meeting ourselves with compassion and acceptance.
Yeah, so I guess being better or being okay with the shit around you, and not feeling, say for example, as triggered as you would otherwise be by some shit
Mm.
instances that happen in your life, would be a good a good step down the developed path, or a more developed
Yeah,
path.
for sure. And I think,
More developed.
yeah, definitely. And I think when we carve out space for compassion and presence, I think what we do is there's a bit more distance in terms, because like you use the language of trigger, or situations that pull up pain for us where we're quick to maybe react, or it brings up a traumatic memory, or whatever it might be.
Or
When we
or it
when
or
we
it makes
build
a
a
red
practice
mist
of
descend.
compassion and softness, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But when we bring that practice of compassion, and presence, when we can actually bodies and notice what's coming up for us, there I think there's a bit more space there, and a bit more of a breath to take than before we go into just like fucking everything up. You know what I mean? Or being in that place of real reactivity where we're seeing through, our eyes are red, and like we're coming from the place of red mist basically, rather than like letting it settle and being able to just soften with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the key things is, for me anyway, dissolving anger was something that's taken
Mm.
a long time to get through. And I think it's fascinating, you with your eloquentness, sort of framing things that have been kind of happening over the last decade in terms of readjusting to that. And admittedly, you know, there's the other sort of, there's this thing that I say that, you know, in my wilder days, you'd use kind of drink and craziness to kind of numb yourself. And the other flip side is when, you know, when you start meditating, whatever, it's like, oh, that's the same sort of numbness, but there's less of a come down. It's a bit like that.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that neutral. It's just, I had this conversation with I'm going to use the wrong term now, but another psychologist that was discussing touring musicians, and particularly how, you know, there were a lot of opiate deaths. Prince, obviously, you know, there's been so many of them, and the concept of like, fuck it, numb yourself up, get on stage, and then you hit that flow point. You know what I mean? When you let go, and it's just you're in that zone, and numbing up because the show must go on is one thing, because you may have nefarious fuckers around you trying to push you on stage. But for your own sort of getting out of that painful zone and getting into that flow zone can be kind of addictive too.
You know, I think the idea of numbness as a means to function, like this idea that if you drink, you know, get mash up, and then you can create, and it turns us away from the pain, I think is a bit of a myth, you know, because actually, although for example, I'm not trying to say that there haven't been artists that perform and create incredible music and have created live shows that are like epic as fuck, you know, because they have, but actually for them, are they awake to it? You know, are they actually connected to it through substances, you know?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Bowie famously got clean. In fact, you know, doing music and performance clean is entirely possible. There is a rock and roll myth for sure. I think I was sort of approaching that point where you can cut off the noise that we're talking about, and almost that breath you're talking about, where you can achieve that through different ways. And what I was getting at was that, you know, that through booze and whatever sort of other substances, that propensity for anger is often very present, but through other mechanisms, it dissipates. So there's a kind of a different form of connection. But the realization for me was, that numbness that I talk about could also be the stillness or the breath that we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting.
But not that I'm condoning any of it. I'm not condoning any of it. I'm just saying that's my own, you know, my own take on it, which is, you know, what the fuck do I know?
It's, you know, it opens up a really interesting conversation, because there's a lot of debate, especially in spiritual and meditative spaces. You know, I go on retreats quite regularly to meditate, where there's this kind of there's some people that sit in the camp where through drugs and through taking drugs, you actually open and are more awake to your spiritual world. It's a point of entry for you to enter presence, you know, and to be more connected both with yourself and others, right? And then there's the other camp, which is like, that is still a movement away from the
true self, or
because you're still taking something. It's still a movement, just in the taking of anything, you're moving away from the present moment, right? So it's an interesting one, and I don't think that there's a right or wrong with it at all. It's just like, what is presence? This is the whole thing, isn't it?
That's it. I think that as long as you can get that breath, and the point that the reason why I mention all of that is that it kind of all goes into that flow point, or that sort of oneness, you know. And like I said, I don't condone any aspect of it. In fact, Level Up UK in the comments says that the constant drive to perform and produce is driven by capitalism, which is kind of true. But I think right now my drive to perform and do that is because I'm fucking screaming to go and perform because of a year and a bit of not performing. You know what I mean? And just like fucking anything. But and that's what I also refer to that as in nefarious people that would drug up their artists and push them on stage. That's definitely not what I'm referring to at all, for sure. Or that urgency to have to go and earn the next paycheck. And then that's true. Warp Space is saying, you know, is it an addiction to endorphins or adrenaline or feel good moments? And I think that flow point is probably what I was getting at. That point when you truly connect and you get out of your own way and something flows, which sounds really fucking hippie for this punk. but it's something, you just get out your own way and let shit happen. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I think the comment about capitalism is really interesting, and I do think that it does play a part in terms of our drive to produce and to be seen. But I think underneath it, the drive is often connection. We are seeking, the endorphins. Even when you're talking about the desire to perform and get out there, a lot of what is beautiful about performance is connection. It's that real sense of being on stage and connecting with audiences and feeling seen in a way, and feeling heard, and also bringing out those feelings in others. That is what drives it. And this is the whole question, I think, is like how we can seek authentic and meaningful connection.
See, that's what it is. I think it's emotional resonance.
Also,
actually,
is it possible? Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was going to, sorry. This delay is really difficult to have conversations, so I'll shut up and stop interrupting you. Please continue.
No, it's all right. Go on.
No, I was going to say that connection, the being seen thing for me personally doesn't really matter. Like, I don't care because I'm so old and jaded. I don't really give a shit about being seen. But the emotional connectivity is the point. To broadcast what you're feeling, to make a whole lot of other people feel that same way, is it. That's the fucking thing. Beautiful. And that's what I mean by getting out your way. So it's not your ego. It's not like whatever. It's not like I feel fucking great. It's like stepping out and something else happens.
Yeah.
Which is that flow or whatever the fuck they call it.
Yeah. It's an incredible thing, and I think that's part of what I miss big time is that feeling, like being on stage and just being able to do that through poetry, and feeling of connection. And when people come up to you afterwards and there's something that you voiced for them that they haven't.
Yeah. Well, I think also, I think it's also important to have people like yourself up there, because there's that whole role model thing as well. When people see someone like you that looks like them, they're going to be inspired to do what the fuck they want to too. So there is an element of being seen, I guess. You are correct. It's buffering. Can you hear what I said? Oh no. Well, while we're waiting for Sanah's left. Hi Durga, how are you? Are you well? In fact, Durga, do you want to join this chat? We'll wait for Sanah to get back on. Let me just call them up. Where are you? Oh, she's come and gone. I mean, sorry, no, they've come and gone. Damn it. Sanah's back. Here we go. Let's see if this works. This is like worse than dial-up internet. I can hear things. I can see your chin. Hi. It's Sanah's chin and buffering. Can you hear me? Hi. You're back.
Yeah. Hi. I'm in Karachi, I promise.
This is lies. You are definitely in Karachi or somewhere. I tell you, you must be somewhere. Where are you, in fact?
I'm in Hatfield.
In London.
And it is
in North London.
It's hot. It's like Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I know Hatfield.
Yeah. I don't know why it's like.
Okay, so
I've got no
there's one question that I want to ask you right before we get kicked off. Durga popped up as well. Big up Durga. I tried to add them to this chat, but they've just vanished. I think their internet connection is terrible too. But what was I going to say? Right. So one question is that, like, finding a therapist, a brown therapist that understands these cultural pressures can be really fucking daunting.
Right.
So if there's any sort of familial stuff or cultural stuff and all that kind of thing, you're like, I don't have to sit down and explain fucking generations of culture and sort of just background stuff to a therapist.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
So how would someone find a South Asian therapist that understands all this shit?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually some amazing organizations that are coming through at the moment on Instagram that are really dedicated, I think UK based as well, to creating catalogs of South Asian therapists. You've got like the BAATN, which is the British and Asian Therapy Network, where you can actually go in and you basically have this catalogue of therapists and you can like filter your search, you know, so that it's like South Asian woman, etc. You know, intersection.
Is there one that is like not a judgmental prick? I think that'd be the perfect sort of drop down.
Listen, email them and try and get them to bring that.
All right, so just throw some real fucking curveballs at them and like sort of try and make them as dickish as possible.
No, I think it's really, really important, you know, to find a South Asian therapist if you are South Asian, you know what I mean, to find a brown therapist. I think it's incredibly important. Yeah. It's like it made all, and it's even driven me in terms of the work that I'm doing, you know, psychology, you know, it's really made such a big difference because you don't have to do the exhausting work
of educating someone.
Of educating someone, exactly. It's you end up, the space it immediately becomes a movement away from you, and that space is supposed to be coming towards you again and again. Yeah. I mean, and so it's immediately a movement away. It's incredibly important. I think there's also a lot of value in taking your time. Like, speak to a few therapists. You know, don't just jump in just because you found the first South Asian brown woman, you know, therapist you've seen. It's like take time. Like every relationship takes time to build trust, right? It's just like any other relationship. Like, you have to work out compatibility. I think this whole idea about good therapists is a bit, you know, I do think there are good therapists, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of it is actually about your mutual compatibility and the dynamic between the two of you, and if it works, you know. And sometimes it takes a bit of time to figure that out.
And what about the economics of it and sort of paying for a therapist? That's the other thing, is like it can be quite expensive.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is what's really tough, and I think this is why a lot of change needs to happen structurally at the NHS level, because that's where free therapy is, right? And that's part of the work that I'm trying to do. So I'm involved in two different pieces of work at the moment, which is basically trying to deconstruct systemic whiteness in clinical psychology, as are many other incredible psychologists in the field. And part of that work is really shifting the system at the training level. So I'm working 1 day a week at the moment with Hertfordshire University to build in anti-racism as a clinical competence. And what that basically, there's so many parts to this, right? But it's basically training up therapists to be able to be anti-racist practitioners, but it's also trying to shift structurally the dynamic of the program so that we are recruiting not only white people. You see what I mean? So just really shifting the selection so that we see the face of clinical psychology in the NHS change, so that free therapy, which is within the NHS, isn't just white people, you know, that we can actually be able to see more and more brown therapists coming through the NHS system. But there are programs that are happening to make therapy more accessible. So there's like the Radical Therapist Network, which is basically pots of money that are being put towards offering free therapy for marginalized groups, you know, to try to make therapy more accessible. And this is it. And I think we have to also shift our understanding from therapy, not only be individual in the one-to-one therapy space, but trying to create more community therapeutic spaces. So, you know, spaces where we can't.
Please continue. Go on. It's this buffering thing. Fucking please continue. I'll stop interrupting. Go on.
No, it's all right. Go on. I was just saying we need more community therapeutic space. It's not just in therapy.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be able to to also take what is therapeutic and make it more accessible within the arts as well. You know, I've just done this project with Anais, who's an incredible musician and artist, by the way, whose new single drops today called Reverie.
Stick in the put the Insta tag in the comments, no?
Yeah, for sure, I will do. But yeah, it's we made these cards together, which are basically through Doc Martens and part of kind of reaching a more her audience that might not necessarily have access to therapy, but they're like therapeutic cards. And the idea is that you're using these therapeutic questions that you might have been asked in a therapy space typically, but doing that with your loved ones, doing that in community, space, you know. So it's kind of just trying to redefine what we understand as therapeutic, that it doesn't only have to live in this like inaccessible paid space of one-to-one therapists, that we can trans therapeutic ways of being outside of that space, you know.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I think the first thing that comes to mind is that you know, you talked about meditation retreats earlier, and I'm generally against sort of any kind of societal structure. I'm just like tear that shit down. I'm not going to partake in things like organized religion or, you know, any kind of thing that has another embedded social hierarchy, like a meditation retreat or fucking Burning Man or fucking whatever. I'm just like, yeah, you know, there's enough societal structures already. So it's fascinating you talk about putting that into community, as opposed to building a community around that therapy. I like the inverse of it, and putting the therapy into the community. That makes more sense.
Yeah, for sure. What is it about meditation retreats that puts you off?
I've been on some as a kid. Like I was deeply into all of this sort of various practices and things. I grew up in a really conservative Hindu household, right? And there was obviously sort of breathing exercises and all sorts of shit, you know, pranayama weekends and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, you know, theologically, when I discovered there was like punks and anti-establishment icons within my pantheon, I was like, this is fucking amazing, wicked. This is fucking awesome. There's my people right there. You know what I mean? And that's it. And I think that, you know, everything from, you know, like familial structures, patriarchy, you know, any kind of structure out there, whether even extended to fandoms like Star Wars or football clubs or organized religion or whatever, fills this hole within us, this existential crisis of whatever. I believe anyway, we're looking for some sort of a narrative to fill that gap. And that could be finance, it could be a job, it could be organized religion, it could be anything. And I'm like not really down for these structures that tend to essentially make people feel shit because someone has to feel better. So that's why meditation retreats that I've been to, particularly, you know, any organization has some weird societal hierarchy that tends to naturally develop from the people within it. That's why I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, this is the thing though, isn't it? I think what you shed light on, Nerm, is also how you can have meaningful community space without reinforcing and replicating systems of whiteness and systems of oppression within them, you know, because actually I think what ends up happening is inevitably, as soon as you create a gathering space, a space of togetherness, we seek hierarchy, you know. It is
a paradox, isn't it? It's a complete fucking paradox.
Yeah, because we've been, you know, and I'm not saying that from a position of blame at all. I think that we've been raised in a society where individualism is absolutely hammered into us, you know. So you want to, as soon as community and we come together and gather, it's very hard unconsciously to not perceive others as some degree of threat, whether it's conscious or not. So that there becomes then a climb kind of happens, and then you know, you get those organizational structures start to seep through that hierarchical.
That's interesting, because I think that when you say individuality that's imposed, I seek that 100%. Like that to me is a positive, but you've referred to it at least twice in this conversation as a problem, or it seems that way.
Not individuality So
Individualism. Sorry.
different.
So please, sorry, forgive my layman brain. I apologize. But
No, because individuality is a beautiful thing.
yeah. So what's the difference? What's
Incredibly...
individualism then as an ism? I don't
No,
understand it.
okay. So for me, I'll try and explain what's happening in my mind anyway. But
no, I'm just stupid. Please explain it to me, because I don't know what I guess I'm lacking the definition of what it is. So forgive me, please.
Yeah. So individuality is very much about embracing, like, you know, your uniqueness in this world. No one's going to be you. It's a beautiful thing. You know, I think individualism is this very, like, ruthless, like, I matter and
right.
You don't. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is all about me, and there's a disconnect from kind of our collective well-being and a sense of us, and a sense of, you know, this fundamental interconnectedness that we have. You know, I'm thinking about, like, you'll probably hate this, but I'm thinking about this Dan Siegel meditation I was listening to the other day, where he talks about mui, you know, the M and the
sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Sorry.
I know you're gonna hate it. I know you're gonna hate it, man. I knew it.
Yeah, go on, carry on. Sorry, I suppressed it. Yeah, go on.
No. Are you a ruthless individual?
No, man, no. But you've educated. Thank you so much for that for explaining that to me. Because I get that. That makes sense. That is just essentially. You're correct. It's capitalism. What's good for the shareholders? That's it. Full stop. Got it.
Right.
Fully understood it in an economic sense and a selfish sense, and you know. And the reason why I say that is because there's the dichotomy at the political heart is what's good for society versus what's good for the individual. And that's that full dichotomy. And does the individual have rights to certain things, or is it better to work in society? There's this constant push and pull, as far as I understand it. And obviously, that's a really basic binary example. There's way more nuance, but I just wanted to sort of figure out what you meant by that, because I didn't understand it. That's why.
Yeah, no, but it's a really helpful question, because I think it's also actually, how do we maintain identity and individuality
in a community
and joy in that? Yeah, in a community, and also not perpetuate ruthless individualism. You know, you know, it is really difficult. You know, how to maintain a sense of self with boundaries, where you are reaffirming who you are in a way that doesn't perceive others as a threat to that, you know, or another's individuality as a threat to that, you know, and where you're still committed to connection and seeing each other as whole and the thriving of community at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, basically, how do we?
So it's just don't be a selfish prick, basically. That's basically it. Just stop being a selfish prick. That's it. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, because as you say that, like, I have certain, you know, individuals reeling through my mind where I'm like, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's, you know, that's fascinating. I sing S is quite, in the comments, are saying Indian culture is heard like, if you're a black sheep, head to London to find your tribe, which is weird, because that's kind of what I did from Birmingham. But I would disagree with Indian culture is heard like, because there was aspects of beauty in it that I found, like all, you know, like the anti-establishment motherfuckers, you know, like there's loads of brown freaks out there that are doing their own fucking thing, which is beautiful. And not just in London, but across the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think sometimes, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if this resonates for you, I sing, but I think when you're, for me anyway, being raised with a lot of pain and I think experiences of oppression in my own family, I think I often made quite generic assumptions about my culture and what it was like, and the only places that I could find freedom and liberation.
Says the doctor.
Go on.
Sorry, carry on. I'm just taking the piss. Go on, please.
Yeah, for sure. But I did, you know what I mean? So I think it's like you sometimes, like, you can really, like, put places like London on a pedestal and be like, it's only in like free and liberated London that I can, you know, be queer and all of those things.
So here's the thing: when I first went to Bombay on tour in 2000, I was like, the people I was mixing with there, the brown people there, are just way more fucking open-minded than anyone I know in Birmingham or London. I was like, what the fuck? This is amazing. So I think it's all about personal experience, I guess. And the same with, like, you know, the Kaminas going to Karachi or whatever, you know, the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Sorry, I cut you off. Please continue. I've just been talking all over this entire chat.
No, you didn't. You didn't at all. I think it's a really important point. Yeah. But I think, where were we before we were talking, before that comment? I'm trying to remember. I've just like
individualism, not being a prick. But actually, there's another question that I wanted to actually beg your pardon. Shit. Was accessibility in terms of therapy. What's your thought on all these apps that are coming up where you can get therapy by the hour and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, this is my position on it, you know, and I think I'm very much in a place of sort of emergent inquiry. I'm still kind of working out my thoughts on it, but I think that it's all about meaningful connection. And I said this, you know, in terms of that relationship and building a meaningful relationship. I think it's very hard to do that authentically on an online space. Like, for example, some of these apps are like, you're just having online chats. You're not even going onto Zoom. You can't even see that person's face, you know. I think, you know, there's pros and cons to it. You know, for example, I know for some therapists and for some people, that some of my friends that are in therapy, they've found being able to do therapy on Zoom actually has been in some ways disinhibiting. They've been able to explore some things that they found harder to do in person, which is interesting, you know. So I think there's something about some of the barriers coming down with this kind of online way of working. But that's not for everybody, you know. I think some people find it really disconnecting, and they take a lot out of being in close proximity to people, you know, and being able to actually look at someone in the eyes and feel a sense of connection and see in real time, you know, how they're meeting your pain, your joy, all of those things. I think it's really important, you know, and I personally think there is a lot in that quality of time and in-person connection that you can't get in the same way on online spaces, you know. Yeah, and I also just think, like, with everything, everyone's trying to make it quick and easy. It ain't quick and easy. You know what I mean? It's just not, it ain't. It's just not quick and easy. Like, trying to work through trauma, trying to be with the messiness of how much, like, the pain that we've been through in our early lives has shaped every relationship, shapes the way we see the world. You know, it's not going to be fixed in 6 sessions of online.
So how do you think this? I mean, so because so there's another thing where, you know, institutional racism has been a part of my life since I was a kid, let alone family kind of issues. And then Toni Morrison's famous quote that racism is a distraction and it prevents you from doing your work. Does that also fold into this trauma we're talking about, where it's a distraction from you doing what you should be doing?
Do you mean trauma is a distraction?
The trauma, or not dealing with it, but the trauma itself and the perpetuation of it is a distraction. So therefore, fuck it off and just keep doing the work you're trying to do. Or is that in itself unhealthy?
It's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting, you know, how trauma is part of what shapes us. You know, this is who we are in a lot of ways. And I think the hard thing about it is we don't choose, you know, and I think that's a really difficult thing to come to terms with in terms of acceptance, that who we are is so heavily shaped by what we go through, you know. So I think to see it as a distraction, and the idea is that kind of we need to repeatedly turn away from it to be able to function, I personally think can create more problems. You know, it's a turning towards that allows the freedom, you know, that allows us to the practice of turning towards it in a way where it isn't all consuming, but actually we see it's there and we can hold its hand, you know, along with us, you know. So I think about this, you know, for me personally, there is the very traumatized child within me who is often like screaming, you know, even in a lot of social situations, that's like, I don't want to do this, stay at home in your locked room and don't see anyone. Do you know what I mean? But actually it's not listening to her in the sense of I follow her instruction and stay at home. It's listening to her and being like, okay, you're here, you're scared, I'll hold your hand and take you with me, you know. So it's like I can be with it and turn towards and hold the hand of that unbelonging, that anger, and let it be with me. Do you see what I mean? So even when if we shift the lens to the Toni Morrison quote and racism as a distraction, racism is there, you know. To pretend that it isn't is a really is an impossibility. It will keep creeping. It will keep finding its way.
And that's generally what brown families tend to do about internal trauma, is that it's not really there. So you kind of end up being gaslit by your own community at times.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And I think this is it. And there's a lot in terms of conversations around what is vulnerability and what is strength, and this idea that the two are kind of these opposing things, and you know, where it's actually a myth that to be strong is to not speak and to carry on. And I think that is, I don't think that just sits in our culture. I think that's it's, you know, but it's definitely, I think in my family, I can only speak to my family, and I'm sure there are a lot of South Asian people in the audience that maybe can resonate with this, you know, that this resonates for, but that this idea that if you're quiet and you get on with it, you know, that's actually an indicator of strength. And there is so much more, you know, in that I've found in terms of my healing, in being able to be vulnerable and speak to pain, give it name, you know, air it out and look at it. And in that vulnerability, again, you open yourself up to connection, right? But I think with silence, you breed shame and you breed isolation. And actually there's more and more suffering because it's heavy, it's heavier, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I think that there's a certain thing that you've just made me think about something else. The thing I was getting at was perhaps this idea of where sort of a memory or a sort of a situation would arise in your mind, and you kind of have this kind of almost tunnel vision of like focusing into the negative, and it's like, fuck you, negative bastard. I'm going to go and do something else to just override you like a motherfucker. Something awesome and badass. I'm going to go here with the awesomeness and with the awesome peoples and the awesome good times and the awesome creativity and do some fucking cool shit. You can go fuck yourself. That's what I mean by that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. But so, yes, in a way, I understand what you mean. But I think for me, it's more instead of fuck you, I think there is a lot in, okay, you're here, like I can extend compassion, like you're not going to go away. That's a voice that's been rammed into your head from all of the voices from your parents, from society that told you never could. You know, it's not your fault. That's okay, you're here, but I'm still going to go and do my thing. Do you see what I mean? So it's the trying not to have the that sort of second arrow of self-criticism. Do you know what I mean? That other, it's like, it's already an arrow that comes in that's like, you're shit. And then you've got the other arrow that's like, you're shit for being shit. Do you know what I mean? Shit for having that voice even in the first place. So it's just trying to meet that with softness and still carry on and still kind of move towards that liberated place and that place of creativity and connection, you know?
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for this. It's been very awesome. And you know what? I really, really, really want to just...
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's been like so disconnected.
No, I really want to do this in real life with you.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking over you.
It's fine. You can talk over me. I'm full of shit. Please just keep talking over me. It's fine. But no, we should do this in real life very, very soon, please.
Yeah, for sure. Let's definitely do it in real life, and we won't have this whole like buffering thing where like I can't remember.
I'm going to bring this on a stick, right, and just fucking hold it up in your face. Like this, right? I'm just going to hold this up in your face, right, when we meet. And just going to say, sorry, Sorry, Sana, I'm buffering. I'm sorry. That's what I'm gonna do.
Oh, you joker.
Yeah, man.
I can't wait to. Yeah, I can't wait to. Let's definitely do it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I should put in the. I saw someone in the chat being like, you should do a TED talk, and I'm like, I've done a TED talk. Check it out.
Yeah, you totally have. You've done loads of shit. Like loads, not shit. Sorry, good things. Sorry, apologies. Not shit. That's terrible. But you've done loads and loads of good shit. What was it? In fact, what was your TED talk on?
Yeah, thank you. So it was called Rewriting my story with poetry and love as a queer Muslim. That's some long ass title, I know. But it was basically talking about using poetry to talk about experiences of shame and self-compassion, a lot of things that we've kind of touched on. But I draw heavily on Bell Hooks' work. Do you know? Are you?
I know Bell Hooks. Of course, I know Bell Hooks.
Yeah. All About Love is like seriously interweaved into that.
In fact, you told me about Bell Hooks that night we went for that night me and Nikita were drinking and you were watching.
Oh yeah.
I took notes and I read.
I do love to drop that book in.
Yeah.
Have you?
I've read some of it. Yeah. Yes.
Have you? Okay,
yes.
cool.
You told me. I wrote it. I got the book. I have it. So yes, I've been reading it. I'll be honest with you, right? I think the thing is, what I'm reading right now is anything to do with like. There's another book called about epigenetic trauma called The Body Remembers. Is that what it's called? Or The Body Doesn't Forget.
Body Keeps the
That's the fucking one, yeah. And I can't do it because I'm just like, it's just fucking, it's way too much. So what I need, and like even Empire Land by, something Sangera and fucking Nick Esh's Brown Baby and all these books that are talking, fuck off. I want to read about some joy, right? I'm going to go read my Star Wars books for a bit. You know what I mean? I just need a bit of fucking downtime. I'm going to read the back of a shampoo bottle for a bit. You know what I'm saying? Just to give my fucking, rinse and repeat. Okay, good. I can do that. Just something a bit calmer.
You know what? I need to learn. I do need to take, I think we need to like swap books for a little while. I need to take like your shampoo and start reading that.
Exactly. But look, big love. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for watching us talk shit and the pixelation.
Yeah, thank you everyone for like staying on as well, because I'm sure people must have got like jarred by me dropping out every 5 minutes, So thank you so much for the people that stayed.
Oh, and this is obviously
me.
archived on Insta chats and everything. So yeah, thank you, and I'll see you very, very soon. I'm going to bug you about like meeting up very soon. Yeah,
for sure. Lots of love, darling.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.